Hello, good morning. Welcome to this new training session within the PREFET Academy Week. The title is New Mechanisms for Impacting Networking and Community Building, which is also quite important when you are trying to create new horizons for research and technology and beyond. We were planning to have as an introduction interview a chat with Walter van der Velde, Deputy Head of Unit of the PREFET area within the European Commission. Unfortunately, he cannot join us. It's such a pity, but in return, we have the opportunity to talk to Rafael Espinosa. Thank you very much for joining us today so quickly.
Thanks to you, Eva.
The idea about this training is that we reflect together about some key principles to start the effort of creating a network of a community which is non-existing because we are facing something which is starting to exist. So we are at that stage, and then offering some tools and some opportunities that can help in this enterprise. The idea is to talk to you first, to share your experience and learn from it, and also as an introduction and to start thinking about this type of issues. For all of you to know, Rafael is the CEO of and founder of Esports Bureau. It's a startup in the area of esports. It's funny because yesterday we were talking with somebody from blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but one of the areas where they are applying it is in gaming. And also we are having a game jam during the weekend around research projects. It's just casualties. It's not that we are trying to promote anything, or it's just that it's happening this way. It's true that these areas are burning in relation to communication and creativity and community building, and it just happened that we can share this experience together. Rafael is the first Spanish-speaking sports business media, his company, and he's promoting the European initiative esports metrics. So from this experience, what is the size of esports community today, and what you consider has been your contribution to this whatever exists today? Tell us a little bit more about what is happening.
Okay, so first of all, once again, thanks Eva for letting us explaining about this sector. I don't think it's a coincidence, as you said. Everything related to gaming, esports, it's burning. I don't want to talk about the situation, the global situation that we are having, but it's obvious that the content that we are generating, while other things can't go as the same way as always, it's a positive thing. If we can say that with this global situation, it's true that there are positive things, at least for certain markets. Not everything is positive, and I will explain. But as I said, I don't think it's a coincidence. So what's esports? Just very briefly for you to understand. I mean, the esports, which is for the ones that are listening to us and they do not know what I'm talking about, is very simple. It's competitions, but instead of being based on the physical or traditional sports, we are talking about video games, right? It's competitions, official competitions using video games, right? There may be people that consider these sports. There may be people that do not consider these sports. I don't think this is the forum to discuss about this. But the truth is that this has been going on for people. People may think that esports is something that has already appeared in the last 5 years, which is probably when they have already started to listen about this new industry. But the truth is that we have been having esports or competitions about video games since 1980. What happens? What happens is that at the very beginning, while we didn't have the technology that we have today, these competitions had place in a local way. several people joined together and had the competitions. While the technology started to grow, and when we started to have these streaming possibilities, what has happened is that a lot of people, a lot of community has already gathered around these new platforms, these new live streaming platforms, to check the abilities that certain people have playing certain video games. The same way that people looks at or watch certain traditional sports because the people playing has quite unique abilities or skills, the same happens with the esports community. The point is that in the last 5 years, with the increasing of the audience based on these new technologies that allows us to be, for example, one team in North America, another team in Latin America, and some people from China watching this match, and the platform that it's broadcasting the event, it has the servers in, I don't know, in Europe. So this is the technology that has allowed us to grow. That said, what's the size of the market right now? Based on the last reports, we are talking about around 400 million spectators for this. It's a forecast for this 2020, right? So this answering to your question, this is more or less the size of this community, right? Which is a community that it's quite special. First of all, because the good point about this, and the reason why the industry is growing so much, is because different trademarks are investing. This is a very attractive audience for different trademarks, and the reason is because this audience, these people, this community, it's not already in the traditional channels. It's a kind of people, a kind of persons that they are not already using television, they are not already using radio, and they are not already using newspapers. They are using another ways, another types of communication. So the good point about this is that for the trademarks, and that's the reason why they are investing so much in the industry, that's a type of potential customers that they cannot find in the traditional channels. And that's the reason why we are growing, because we have audiences, and we have audiences that have a very great added value for these trademarks. That said, one of the problems that we are already having, and that's why I said that not everything is gold. It's true that with the pandemic, obviously, there were no content on traditional channels, etc. So there has been a small movement from these specific channels, streaming platforms, to traditional platforms, because there were no content to broadcast. This has already passed right now. We don't know if it's going to come back or not. The good point is that this has allowed us to increase these audiences, right? The wrong side of the coin, or the bad part of the coin, is that as a very young industry, we do not know yet how to directly monetize this audience, right? So what I say is that, okay, it's good to increase the audience, it's good to increase your target market, but if you do not know yet how to monetize it, it's no use. So that's what is happening right now about the esports community. And that's one of the challenges that we have ahead of us, how to directly monetize this increasing audience.
Okay, and do you think it is an active community or passive?
In fact, as I said, one of the good things, and one of the reasons why the trademarks are very interested in this community, is that it's a very, very, very active community. Which are the differences, for example? It's related with the way and the platforms that they use, and the reason why I said that these people is not in the traditional channels. For example, for you to know, probably all of you know YouTube, which it's a very well-known platform. The truth is that with this community, we are using other platforms pretty similar, in the sense that it's not a passive thing like watching television, where you sat down and you watch the content, and there is no interactivity between you and the content generator, right? The good point about this community is two things. First thing is that the channels, the technology that we are using for this broadcasting and this live streaming allows us to interact. It's true that right now it's quite, I'm not going to say an old-fashioned way of communication, it's via chat, right? But the truth is that it's already there, right? I mean, people can interact, they can chat, they can start expressing how they are feeling about the content that they are watching, etc., etc. So it's interactive. And the second point is that the kind of people that of this community, they are not only using one screen, we can say. At the same time that they are watching this screen with the match, with the content, etc., at the same time, in parallel, they are using other screens. They are using their phone, they are using their smart, their tablet. They are generating content about what they are seeing in different social networks, like, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., etc. So that's the good point about this community, that it's a very active community. You can learn a lot about what they like, and then you can change your content and adapt the kind of content that you are generating to this specific community and their taste, what they like, what they don't, etc. So I think that in terms of audiences, this is the great point about this community, that it's quite an interactive and active type of community. Absolutely no passive. I mean, if you are a trademark and you are willing to enter into the esports community and you think that this is a passive community, you are committing a very, very, very big mistake.
Okay, I'm taking notes, because then we publish some highlights in Twitter. And what did you find harder to achieve all this? The hardest part at the very beginning, when there was nobody?
I think there are two things, and as I said, the great problem that we are suffering right now is that I'm going to talk about two different moments in time, right? The first moment in time was when we didn't have this technology that allows us to have this broadcasting. In fact, even if we are today at a very good technological level, I think there are quite a lot of space to improve in this kind of technology. That's on the technology side. On the business side, which I think it's the most important thing right now, because we have a very good level of technology that doesn't match with the business models that we have right now. One of the, and this is quite interesting, because everyone says, and one of the typical quotes that everyone says about the esports is that, okay, it's a digital native industry. That's right. This is like a blade with two sides, right? On the good point is that, okay, we are a technology industry. That's very good. We can have a lot of inputs. We have a lot of technology, etc. On the bad side of this is that, compared with traditional television, for example, we have so many KPIs that we do not know what to use. That means that when the trademarks are entering the industry, they do not know what to measure. So they do not know really how to measure the return of investment. What's the problem here? That many trademarks are entering because it's something that, okay, we have to be there, because of this fear of missing out perception, that we cannot be out of this, even if we do not know how to make money out of this industry. So one of the key things that we are trying to achieve right now, and you mentioned it before, is this esports metrics initiative, which in fact it's no less than standardizing the metrics that we should use to make the trademarks understand how do they make the return of the investment, right? It seems like a very silly thing. It's like, okay, you have platforms, they give you KPIs and metrics, just use them. Depending on what you want to achieve, depending on your commitments by entering into the esports industry, you should be measuring different things. This doesn't happen in television. For example, in television, you only have one KPI, which is GPR, right? So it may be a good one, it may be a bad one. There are people that think that it's a good one. There are people that think that it's a bad one. But the fact it's just one. So it's the same for everyone. So at least the good point is that it allows you to compare between everyone in the industry, right? When you are talking about the esports industry, for example, you are a trademark. One team, for example, comes to you for a sponsorship, and they tell you, look, these are my metrics. Then another team comes and says, look, these are my metrics. Then a third one comes and says, look, these are my metrics. And the problem for the company is that, okay, each one of them is giving me a different metric, a different KPI. Which one is lying, right? there is no one lying. The problem is that we have so many KPIs because we are a technology industry that we haven't found yet how to establish a standardization so that everyone can talk about the same thing and we can compare between each other. So that's one of the most important challenges that we have right now, because as I said, first point, we need to understand how to monetize directly this community. And the second point, and very important, is that probably the same way that the traditional sports made a boost when they started with the media rights, this is something that it's also going to happen with the esports industry. The problem is that how we are going to establish a media rights model if we do not know yet what to measure, right? So that's the real challenge.
Okay, but you have also been involved in H2020 projects. You know, the purpose is completely different. Even when you build communities, you don't have this need to monetize anything. It's not at all the purpose. But you need the community, and you need it to be active for the science-based technology to go forward, because it is increasingly complex and increasingly multidisciplinary. What do you think that could be transferred from the esports experience to research for future and emerging technologies?
Well, in that sense, I do not think that this industry is very different from others, in the sense that, as I said, we use a lot of technology. We are using very different technologies for very different purposes, not only for the audiences. You mentioned before about the blockchain. This industry is working also with blockchain. It's like two very good industries that have already started to match. I remember, for example, in 2018, probably it was the highest peak of interest in both esports and blockchain. So everyone thought that, okay, if this is an emerging industry, if this is an emerging technology, let's match them together and we will make for sure a pretty good project. The truth is that the projects that have started by using blockchain within the industry, they have not prospered. They have not been successful. And I don't think it's because the industry is not good enough or because the technology is not good enough. My guess is that the reason is that we do not know yet how to use the technology in the correct way. And my understanding is that even, for example, the use of blockchain is not still I'm not going to say it's not still correctly used. Obviously, there are projects from other industries based on blockchain. My guess is that the huge potential and the true potential of blockchain has not been yet discovered, or we have not thought yet about the real potential of this technology. And then there are other technologies that I don't think that our industry is boosting them in terms of new research or whatever, but it's true that other technologies such as machine learning, big data, artificial vision, etc., they are quite used for different applications and tools that are emerging in the industry that are quite helpful. But my guess is, as I said before, and I think the blockchain example it's quite representative. The problem is that we do not know yet how to use the technology in the correct way, or at least in its full potential.
Okay. And my final question from my side, then we will allow the the audience to participate. I mean, you can already start doing it through the question and answer forum. But is there any final recommendation that you want to make sure that you say today?
If we are talking about communities and how to engage the communities, it may seem very simple what I have to say, but sometimes we forget about the basics of different industries, models, companies, etc., which is listen to them. It's a very silly and a stupid thing. I mean, I'm not discovering anything new, but sometimes we lose the focus. I mean, if you want to engage with your community, the first thing that you have to do is to learn from your community, understand the needs of your community, and then you will be able to prepare whatever your product, your company, your service is focused on this community. Nowadays, it's the world is progressing. The customers are being so much demanding. I mean, probably 20 years ago, you could say, I mean, I'm using this strategy, I'm entering this market, I can use the same thing for another market, and then like make the wheel turn, and then we can attack to different markets doing the same thing. This is something that today it's not working. It's impossible. I mean, customers has already evolved. They want customized content, or they want to feel that you are doing something for them specifically. Even if they are a community, they know they are a community, but they want to feel that they are special. So the old-fashioned way of acting about, I can use the same thing for this, for that's not gonna work anymore. You need to, I know that it's an increasing and demanding way of acting and working for a company, obviously, but this is the way you have to work today. I mean, you have to listen to your community, specifically to the needs of different segments, etc., and then prepare your strategy based on that understanding and that learning that you have already achieved. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible.
Great, thank you so much, Rafael. Any question from the participants? You can either type it in the questions and answer forum, or you can also raise your hand. You have this functionality, so we can open up your microphones. Sometimes we need to give some time because it takes time to type. But anyway, meanwhile, I wanted to thank you again, and to let you know that we will send you this PREFET souvenir for supporting us today. It is a 3D print of the sound wave of the sentence PREFET, the future of technology. Good. Thank you very much. And I see Christina raising her hand. Christina, I think I tried to open up your microphone, but you are self-muted now.
Okay. Hi, good morning. Hi, Rafael. I joined later, so maybe I lost some important parts of your speech. Nonetheless, I have a question or a reflection. I don't know. So this blockchain process, it truly aims to bring technologies to the future, okay? Or the way you deal with your enterprise. In the PHET program, I think the concept is different because it is based on novelty, it is based on disruptive technologies, alteration of knowledge, of paradigms of knowledge. So for me, I don't see how the two processes can be truly compared in parallel terms, because one is assumed to be based on the great knowledge you have from an enterprise. So there is a lot of communication, while in PHET Open, there is a lot of secretive aspects, because you are truly trying to be disruptive and to bring innovation. So for me, the provocation or the question is, how can you bring these two processes closer when they are based on a very different fundamental approach, in my opinion? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Christina. I mean, it's a huge and really good question. I mean, I don't think it has an easy answer, in the sense that probably you are talking, as you mentioned, you are talking about somehow two different realities, right? But one thing that you cannot miss out is that even if within the PREFET you are talking about maybe even technologies that do not exist or whatever, right? Probably one of the things that and obviously maybe the goal is not yet to reach a market or whatever. I understand this obviously, right? But the truth is that there may be something that, or maybe a reason why you start focusing on this research, right? Probably you are trying to solve whatever problem, right? Every time you start to think about we could do this, or we have the necessity to start thinking about new technologies, new things, you are thinking probably about a problem for sure. I mean, it's the natural way of thinking. I mean, we have this problem and we need a new solution that it's not already in the market. It's not maybe even thought about it yet. But the truth is that the problem is already there. So in order for you, whatever the technological solution that you propose, whatever it is, right, you are already doing like somehow a research on a specific community, right? Not in the sense of this is my target market. I'm not talking about thinking about yet about having a company reaching a market, making profit, etc., etc. But the truth is that you have already identified one problem, and in order to prepare something or to think about a solution for this problem, you probably have already done some kind of research within a specific community to understand their needs, and then you maybe started thinking about a potential solution. So I don't know if that answers to your question, but it may be a very thin joining bond between these two realities, but that's what I can say.
If I may add to the answer, I think there are some similarities. Of course, the purpose for making the community is completely different, and probably the members of the community are completely different. But the circumstances are similar in the sense that in both cases, the community is starting from scratch. It is doing something that doesn't exist, with something talking about things that people don't yet really understand. Not even the ones that are speaking about these things really fully understand them, because they are evolving as they talk. And the fact that they really need these communities to evolve and to grow. And in both cases, these communities are being built for the long term. The focus is always in the very, very long term. I was thinking about something else that I don't remember right now, but it is, and they are also both, in both cases, trying to really disrupt. Maybe not science and technology, maybe it's more a social disruption, but still, we are talking about disruption from scratch, not really, still with a lot of uncertainty around the technology itself, and for the long run, for the long term, looking into the long-term visions. And I took some notes of some things that Rafa told us that could be useful. For example, that you first start locally, and then there are different nodes happening in local, in different locations, and then these nodes start to interconnect to each other. Maybe this could be useful. It doesn't start. It took years to grow this community in the case of esports, and it will take time to grow any new disruptive community from scratch. I also took note that part of the success was the technology used, the communication channels, in terms of communication channels, and not communication channels, interaction channels. And this also needs to be important, because we really need to open up our minds on the technology we use to interact with the members of this community. And this training, for example, will show some tools, some technologies that we could use if technology has such a strong impact on the result to build this community. And to keep this community really, really active is not about just talking. And this thing about listening to the community. And listening doesn't only mean that you sit down in front of them and wait for them to finish talking, but actually that you take whatever is being said to you and you use it to keep working. You really take what is said into account. I have so many notes that it's hard for me to grab up so fast, but maybe Christina, this answers your question. If you want to add anything else?
No, just to thank. Cool answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Rafael. We are going to the contents now. Thanks, and we keep in touch.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I will start sharing my screen so we can see the presentation. Okay, so we are going to keep talking about new mechanisms. It's just to offer you possibilities for impacting networking and community building. The reason why we chose this training, there are actually two reasons why we chose this training. One is because we really believe into growing interdisciplinary research to really become disruptive. The challenges ahead are increasingly complex, more and more complex. The knowledge that we accumulate in the different areas is also bigger and bigger, and the need to merge these different knowledge silos so that we can target the most relevant challenges for life in the coming 10 years is more and more important to grow this interdisciplinarity. But this requires creating communities that are not necessarily there already, still, or yet. And the other reason is because the Commission seems to believe this also, and when you put your hat not only of a disruptive researcher, but a disruptive researcher funded or to be funded by the European Commission within the PHET program or the Future Pathfinder, which is the following program, the Commission is stressing very much this community building need. Maybe not, if I use the jargon, maybe not in PHET Open, in currently PHET Open, which is the first seed, the first proof of concept. But if you go to PHET Proactive, which is already starting to develop a seed that has been proved, community building is one of the main, is a key parameter, and it will keep so in the future. So for these reasons, we chose this training as part of the overall agenda. Again, make it yours. These are just suggestions and ideas, and it's meant to support you. Participate as much as you can in the, or as much as you want in the questions and answers, and raise your hands. We will be very, very, very happy to discuss together. Okay, so I wanted to first raise you a couple of questions. Let me open it. Imagine you are convinced that building these new communities is important for your research. Then who would you like to start engaging in this community? Industry is growing heavily, followed very closely by end users and policy makers, and of course then other researchers, also others. Okay, I see the numbers are not changing that much, so I close it. Great, thank you very much. It's interesting to see this 80% industry consensus. In fact, for sure, it's important to evolve technologies. I'm very happy to see end users also there, because it is really, really, really important to keep them in mind from the very beginning, so that we can really adapt, so that we can really listen to them and understand which challenges we can do best and which challenges we need to keep improving or what to prioritize, etc. In terms of prioritization, it's also very good to see these policymakers. In fact, so they can also regulate and support technology development through regulation. And finally, of course, other researchers. Actually, I'm quite surprised that other researchers is the fourth option and maybe not the first. But that is a positive surprise. I'm very happy because the more we open our minds to community building, probably the better for the future. Okay, so I wanted to raise another question. It's much easier about researchers in your area, also in other areas. Of course, 100% other areas. Great. Don't forget to also involve researchers in your area. I guess your question is your answer is trying to show that not only in your area, but sometimes we can forget, we can get to forget about that also. Okay. So I will start. My idea is to start with 5 principles that could, without really thinking on whatever technology or channel or mean that you use, resource that you use for engaging, for contacting the potential members and for interacting with them. I thought of 5 principles, or I was informing 5 principles that could help you. And then we will see some potential technologies. So the first principle is to clarify the purposes. The purpose. It is really, really, really important when you address somebody to join you, that you explain why this community is needed, what it is going to work into, what it is going to be for, and very, very important, also the purpose for the one that is coming. So what will, if I address you to join my community, what is the community about? What are we going to be working on? But also what it will bring to you. Most probably this last part will change depending on who I am addressing. And if we are involving in the same community at the same time, other researchers in our area, other researchers from other areas, policymakers and users and industry, for sure that what it brings to you will be completely different and we really need to adapt it. So, but we cannot be doing everything maybe at the same time. So we have to find purposes that fit everybody's interests or do different activities that fit everybody's interests. When we have a very, very, very multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary community, this will be a great challenge. If the purpose is not clear, either they will not join the community or they will not be active in this community. Normally, you will not get to a clear purpose right away, like, okay, so the purpose is going to be this one. You will have to study for having this properly figured out, or at least with more chances to go on. I advise to map the system, to know who is really there. Policymakers, okay, yes, but who? Industry, okay, yes, but which sectors? Are we talking about several sectors or just one? Are we talking about startups or SMEs or big players? Who is really there? How many of them? How active are they? The end users, okay, is the end users directly? or somebody that agglutinates them somehow, associations, federations, I don't know, councils. So it's really good to take time to map the system and really understand it and try to figure out who do you really want to involve and what they could bring. Also examine the problem from different perspectives. For example, from the different perspectives of these different stakeholders that you want to engage, and try to find the nexus, what they share. Because if you can offer one single message that they share, it will be much more clear than if you have to keep several messages for each of them. Remember that this principle is about clarity. Okay, so we really need to have this as clear as possible, and the more simple it is, the clearer it will be. And then also analyze the context, some driving forces that could support this effort, somebody else that is doing the same maybe, or trying to do the same, and that could help you, maybe from the side of the end users, who knows, or some barrier that we will have to overcome. For example, this coronavirus situation raises some barriers because all the interactivity needs to be online. It seems, or at first it seemed as something periodic, but many things will stay for I don't know, forever. So this is a context that we really need to analyze. For example, there is one European program which is COST. COST is to create networks of researchers around hot topics or emerging areas, so that they can interact and they do joint experiments or joint discussion groups, events. They interchange knowledge and experience and this type of activities. So it's purely about networking, and we know from some researchers participating in some of these networks that they are facing some context, let's say, situations because of having to shift to 100% online activity, and this is impacting these networks heavily. So these are things that we need to keep in mind, to clarify also the purpose, because if the purpose is defined as doing joint experiments, either you have a technology that can actually make these experiments possible in the online setting, or it will be very hard to achieve. And if you don't meet your promise altogether, it's not just you, but altogether, if the promise cannot be met, it will have an impact on your efforts. So it is important to ask ourselves and to be able to answer very, very, very clearly why, what for, and keep in mind that there are so many networks, so many events, so many activities, and we need to show that this makes any sense for people to join and it's not just yet another network. Principle number 2, convene the right people. They need to represent collectively all parts of this system that you have mapped before. Be ready to scratch from the map. I mean, when you are mapping the system, you really need to choose who really makes sense to be there and who seems somehow theoretically obvious, but in practice they don't really mean to be there, or at least they don't mean to be there at first, and they can be engaged in different stages. I'm not saying that it has to be either way or the other, just think about this type of things, okay? And if somebody needs to be there, even if you don't want them to be there, because they are going to be, you think, many times we think that they are going to make noise, that they are going to make it harder for us or for others, maybe to be all together. If you really feel, if somebody is really, really, really part of a system that you want to evolve, at some point they will be to be there, okay? Also find for people that has the ability to get things done. just for being there in a list, but never joining any activity or contributing to any of them, that doesn't grow a community. It grows a list, but your purpose is not that, okay? And also people that is willing to cross boundaries and work in a team with different perspectives and priorities. People that is, in principle, open-minded. Well, this is just to, we have mentioned, we have the state, the government, the political system, we have the academia, universities, the higher education system, but also maybe other education institutions or other research institutions which are not academic ones, industry, firms, the economic system as a whole, media-based, and also culture-based public. And for example, yesterday one of the experts talked about involving other stakeholders like most creative arts and things like this. This could also be possibilities, and also considering society as a whole, natural environments, many things that we really need to keep our minds open at first when we are trying to map this system, and then be selective once we think we have everything being considered. Once we have done steps number 1 and 2, we need to cultivate trust for impact. How? Through sustained, authentic relationships based on shared purpose and shared values. We need to keep it. This is not a sprint, this is a marathon. We really need to run the marathon step by step, always talking, always answering. I'm not saying immediately, but we have to be responsive enough. I'll make sure that the others are also in between each other, and that we are really sharing the purpose and the values, and also the outcomes. And always, since we are always merging these completely different parts together, always keep this in mind. Always try to look for the bridges, to look for what we share and not what we do differently or what we think differently. In relation to this, it's very important that we manage to have everybody contributing. Is the first picture. Only all together we make things change. And I said manage because normally this doesn't happen naturally or even magically. Normally somebody is really active in making this happen, into coordinating people, keeping people alive, keeping people engaged, so that we are all working together for the same purpose. As in the boat, somebody's keeping the rhythm so that we all row in the same direction in the very same moment. Otherwise, the boat will move slower, or maybe it won't even move, or it will move in circles. And then going back to TV show, old show that I don't know if you will know or not, but it was these guys, heroes that save people around from different type of situations, and always with somebody being the bad guy. What I wanted to stress from them is that they had very particular roles. It was the strong guy, it was the nice guy that managed to engage people in things that seem impossible. It was the crazy guy that somehow managed to engage people in things that seem impossible. And then it was the leader, the one that was making these plans and for the rest to the strategy, the one thinking about the strategy. I'm not saying this have to be one single person roles, but somehow we need some type of role playing for the community to really work. And somebody needs, or at least one person needs to play the role of thinking the strategy, and keeping the leadership. The fourth, coordinate actions with activities always happening. Doesn't mean every single minute, every single day, or spamming or anything. Of course, we have many things to do, but we need to keep the community alive. Otherwise, it dies much faster than it grows. It takes tremendous effort, or a big effort, to grow it, and very few time for it to die. It will really help if members become active, because this way it doesn't all depend on you. Assign roles, assign responsibilities, and let people do it. Create structures, avoid duplications to prevent conflict, inform of results, because sometimes there might be a piece of the community which is very active and the others are not seeing it, and it is really, really good that everybody sees. So, because this engages a lot. Try to generate evidences a long time. We also heard in the previous seminar that we need to measure to learn. Measuring will not allow us to learn. We need to look at the numbers and think about them. And of course, we will learn from many other things apart from indicators, metrics. But for sure, they are important to learn and to improve, because sometimes intuition can be wrong, and numbers show us many things that we don't see otherwise. So the team will also rely on metrics. Rafael has also told us about that. It's funny, going back to your question, Cristina, because in the previous seminar, webinar, which was about dissemination and communication, the very, very, very last question was, what would you be interested to learn in a future webinar? And they gave several alternatives, and let's say the winning one was how to measure, how to define indicators, and how to keep track of them. And these were researchers in H2020 projects and the PREFET community, because the webinar was offered in this context. Rafael comes from a completely different context, and they are also worrying about metrics that allow to compare and allow to learn. And the final principle, collaborate generously, of course, in the community you are creating, but in any other community that we engage. We all assume positive intent. This allows frequent, not spamming, but frequent communication, and continuously look for opportunities to work with others in support of shared goals. Again, it requires some effort and always this long-term horizon. We are running a marathon. Keep calm, relax. This is not a sprint. And very important, we need to keep adaptive to changing circumstances. While these principles are not something that somehow they are steps. We don't follow these steps once and that's it. This is circular, completely circular, as almost everything. In fact, I'm seeing my picture now and I'm regretting to use this picture. I wanted to show that there is a flow, that smooth flow that goes and moves forward, but I don't want it to look linear. We are always looping, we are always learning, and we are always improving. Just to close up this part, networks are an important mechanism for reaffirming leadership. If we are leading a new science-based technology, networks is a very good mechanism, or a very important mechanism, to reaffirm our leadership around this technology, and are something to be kept alive. It's not only about creating the community, it's about evolving and keeping it alive. So before I go to some potential tools that you can use, any comments or questions up to here, or any raised hands? Let me check. Hold on a second, I'm trying to check the raised hands. Okay, so I wanted to show you a couple of tools. These are just things that we have tested and that are working quite well, and we wanted to share. Of course, you can do whatever. One is Miro. We use it within PREFET. I wanted to show you. We don't have any interest. We really tested many different platforms, and this one seemed to work very well for the following. I was open already. We use it during one activity within PREFET, which was some creativity workshops. Okay, we had some trends, and we wanted to brainstorm together with researchers from different areas to try to promote the creation of project ideas related to these trends. And at first, this was going to be at physical events, physical workshops. Of course, in the end, it couldn't happen that way. So we had to turn into an online setting. And we wanted it to be really, really interactive. We needed people to be playing, sticking, touching, participating in this brainstorming. And somehow we were having this thing, this creature that was being formed, and we wanted the hands to be there touching and giving form to it and making it grow into a project idea. And we found this tool that allowed us to do it. You can show any canvas. It's not showing very well now, or at least the way. Where is it? We show them canvas like this one, where we were. This was fixed when we opened. This was what they saw. It was the context related to the trend that we were going to work into. In this case, ethically trustworthy artificial intelligence and anonymous analytics. But there were many different trends that we worked into, and we shared the canvas with them, and they enter and they could play posits and brainstorm together as we were talking. All together, we could I mean, in some sessions we had even more than 20 people work together over the canvas, sticking posits all the way around in real time, and it works quite well. It's not showing very well right now for some reason. I don't know why. Because the one that you are seeing, for example, is full of posits. I don't know why it is not being shown. Why the posits are being shown. I will close and try to open it again. While it opens, I want to share this one with you. I will share a link so you can enter and play around. I wanted to do this mural that we were here in this webinar today. So I will share it through the chat in case you want to enter and play around a little. And we will see it in real time. Once you enter, you can use this toolbar to click and stick a posit. Okay. And as I said, at some point we had 25 people. If you enter the canvas as we talk, we will see different squares with your names around, like Eva Garcia, Agatha, whatever, okay? And you will see the squares wandering around as people moves, sticking up different posits, messages, drawing lines, and doing disjoint work. So if you join, we will be able to evolve. We will be able to see how the mural evolves, and we see each other doing things. Of course, this is just playing around, but in this case, we were actually brainstorming together. It's such a pity that it doesn't come out for some reason. I will keep trying now. I think it's coming. Meanwhile, you can take time to log in, to enter if you want. So you see one, you see deposits in orange, in green, in this case in yellow. In this case, we had many different colors because different ideas were growing in parallel around the same trend. And then we were using these lines and stars and squares to try to merge them together and see potential synergies. Many things, as I said, many things were growing, happening in real time with different stakeholders, with different researchers. Sticky notes. Sometimes the color is, for example, in the case of regenerative medicine, the color is links to other trends that were relevant for this particular area and this particular project that was being grown. And it worked quite well for this type of online interaction. So it really allowed us to have this workshop, which we had never done online before. We were used to do it physically, and it happened the same way online. We were all participating, and the result was quite similar to what we would have achieved doing it together. The only part is that we couldn't, I don't know, go to eat together or do something together beyond the workshop, which is important, the social part of things. But at least the workshop could be done. Any comments or questions? I will come back later to see if you are trying to do something. But anyway, in terms of the experience, some conclusions that I wanted to share with you are the moderator's role is crucial. These workshops happen nicely because the technology worked for us, but first, because the participants really engaged into the task. Second, but also because there was always somebody moderating, keeping people always making questions, writing posits when somebody was having any technical issues, trying to look for synergies and relationships between deposits that the different people was placing or were placing, trying to bridge the fact that we were having different researchers from different disciplines. So we raised questions. Do you want, so for example, people from health, do you want to ask the people from IT? I'm doing it very simple right now, but wouldn't you like to ask them about this and this and this? Or maybe something else. So this moderator's role was crucial, as in fact, it happens also when you are doing it physically, but maybe online, and maybe at the beginning of this session was even more important. You need to prepare it previously. The canvas was already there. We had thought about, I mean, the context for the trend was already there, and we explain it, some experts explain it as an introduction, so we could start to become creative and to start thinking about potential ideas, and we could be inspired. We had some questions ready to raise if ice was killing the session at some point, particularly at the beginning. It is important to get ready for this type of sessions as it happens anyway if you are doing it physically. And then some post work. You just do the session. It's very nice and that's it. I mean, it is still very, very, very good, but if it doesn't generate any additional value beyond that, next time that you invite people to similar sessions, they might find it harder to participate, and the next one a little bit harder, and the next one a little bit harder. Some post work to create additional value is also very, very, very important. For example, sending a picture of the result first, and that's immediate. As you close the mirror, you can send the picture. Then we documented. It's not just the picture. We wrote this document so that the project idea ended up in a nice way that could be understandable when we read it 1 or 2 months later, because maybe the posits were very good for brainstorming, but if you close it and you open it, I'm saying 1 month and maybe it's 1 week later, most probably you don't remember what the idea really was, what the outcome, what the meaning of those posits really is. So we documented it nicely, trying to not to lose anything, not to lose any value. We recorded the session so we could re-listen to it and take the most out of it. We shared this document. We invite the others to edit the document, and they did. We thought of somebody else that could join, that could be, because during the brainstorming we had several people, but we could engage further and further people, so we were identifying potential others to share the document with them, and so they could give us feedback. All this post work is also very, very important. And then redoing, you do the first time, you do it the first time and it works good, quite well, but you can always learn and doing better and better and better. And it's not only your own individual learning, but the learning, let's say the group learning. If you ask the others what they think about this session, what they would do differently, or what they would add to the session, and you listen and you take it into consideration for the future. Any questions or comments up to here? I'm going to check the mirror to see if any of you are there. No, it's just my hi. Oh, I see Rosella. Thank you very much, Rosella. Oh, actually, I see some posits. It's just that they are very small. I will grow them up. Hi, hello, I start. Okay, this is great. You can zoom in or out, and you can, I mean, actually about redoing is also about learning the tool itself, learning the technology. There are many functionalities and tools that you can learn to use the future, so your interactions with richer and richer, because using the right technology and the right tool can make a strong difference. And the same way we are seeing Rosella moving around, the more people that is on working on the same part of the mural, we can see their names wandering around and working together. Another tool that I wanted to comment, to bring here today, is a game jam. Actually, this is another experiment that we will try to do and learn and see what happens. This week was also meant to be a physical event, and we had to shift into a digital one. We have foreseen some activities to interact, to make different stakeholders to interact. For example, people from arts to interact with around the trends and the projects and the researchers. And we needed to find some ways to do this. We are going to do some theater plays around the trends and the projects and so forth. We couldn't do that, but we didn't want to choose the possibility to do something as similar as possible. So we came with this idea of a game jam, which is happening this weekend. We already have, I looked it this morning, and there are already 48 game developers. They are not non-professionals or very junior game developers that have taken the challenge to develop a mini game just for the heck of it this weekend, around some of the projects that we have been working into and some of the trends that we have been working into, to see how they see it, what they imagine about it, what they create around them. And researchers are also supporting us in this challenge, in this experiment, explaining these projects and these trends to the developers initially, answering questions if they happen during the weekend, and also to make sure that the game keeps some scientific foundings, and see what happens, and see what researchers can learn from this creativity, see what developers can learn from this science and technology, and from the joint initiative all together. We haven't done it yet. It will happen this weekend. So I cannot share today with you all the experience, only the preparatory part. It is great to see the response from this young community of game developers. It is also very exciting to see the response from the researchers. That has been very positive. We will see how we manage this heterogeneity, but in principle we find it really, really positive. It's not only heterogeneity in terms of the disciplines and the areas we belong to, but also the mindsets. Some people are very young, some people are not that young. Some people are digital natives that Rafael was mentioning. Some of us are not. So we will see. This is going to be great, but we will see also. We will learn a lot from this. As I said, the preliminary engagement is really, really being good. It will be very dynamic. It's already very dynamic, and this will be also very good. But we really need to learn from this experience and see if it brings any value to both sides. Because, as I said at first, we need to bring value. Otherwise, we won't keep running the marathon. We will end up our race sooner than we thought, or at least this part of the race, and we will need to find some new ways to do it. If you want to join the game jam, at least just to see, or to actually really join the game jam, offering some project or whatever, you are very welcome. I will write in the chat the email. You can write us here, and we will get in contact with you to organize it, because we don't want to I will write it later when I can. Before closing the session, I will write the email, so you have it there in case you want to write us and join us as watchers or as active participants, or if you want to be informed. Eva, please, or PREFET team, please, I would like to see the final video games. I don't want to participate, but I want to see the final games, or your final conclusions, your question marks, what is the answer. We will be very happy to share it with you. We just want to do it if you really show interest, so we don't spam or do anything that you don't want us to do. Okay, any comments or questions or hands raised? I will check for hands raised. I don't see any. I will check the mirror again in case I have somebody to look at there. More highs. Jelisabeta, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope these hints are useful. These possibilities are also useful. Feel free to contact us if you want, apart from the ED Academy and the Game Jam. This I don't want to miss. Try, discover, try. We have to test. We are learning. We have to test different possibilities and learn from it. Discover possibilities. We have to keep open-minded, not just the ABC that we are used to. We can keep the ABC, of course, but we really need to go beyond that. Future generations communicate completely different, and we cannot lose them, at least for that. But enjoy. I would try this not to become a burden or a pressure or something that stresses us beyond our maybe normal lives. It is really important if we manage it to be enjoyable for ourselves, because this way we will also make it enjoyable for the others, and this way we will keep running the marathon and we will not give up. So thank you very much, and we keep in touch. I will write now the email.